Speedway is starting this month at the Costa Mesa Speedway, and the Grand will be starting shortly, so we urge you to go out and support the sport of Speedway. But today we're going to talk about the early days of 70's Speedway, the glory days. We're going to talk about some riders right now.
Sexy Jeff Sexton. Jeff was one of those early days 70 riders, hardcore, serious. He wanted to win a world title. This guy was intense. He was no messing around with Bruce Penhall there on the track. He squeezed through guys. Jeff was a little guy, but strong and tall in stature. And he just raced with Doug Farrell, the best of them. Jeff Sexton was a charger. He had that bell helmet. And he was with Guy Watterson, always passing these guys. He just had that intensity, and he placed number 2 in the United States Speedway Championship and retired and had a family and just had a good personality, a good family. He was a good guy, sexy Jeff Sexton. He had a good body too, and sadly he passed away. Rest in peace, Jeff Sexton. Big Mike Conley. Mike Conley started his racing career at the age of 18. He won the Greenhorn Enduro race. It was a 400-mile race with some of the best competitors of that day in 1963. It was the Greenhorn Enduro, and Mike Conley won that as a young 18-year-old. That set him up for stardom in the Speedway world. He had a rough start, but Mike Conley went ahead and he was a captain of the team Speedway. He was a legend. He was one of those riders always on top. He was a huge guy. Mike Conley was big, and he was strong, and he was a star in American Speedway.
I was just a little guy, knee-high to a grasshopper, and I was at the Irwindale Speedway in Irwindale, California. And after the races, I went ahead and saw Mike Conley in the pits, and he was a big guy. He was tall. You didn't want to mess with Mike Conley. He'd squash you. And I was just a little boy, a little rugrat. And I'm like, hi, Mike, can I have your autograph? And Mike was sitting in this lounge chair. He was so tall, he had to sit down in the pits. And he was just a nice guy. He's like, sure, yeah, what's your name? And he signed my name on the autograph. And Mike Conley was just a good guy. He was just educated. You could tell by talking to Mike Conley that he was just a star person inside. He was a star rider also.
He was fearless on a speedway bike, probably because he was so big. And he raced in that USA versus the World Speedway competition. He was a top rider. He was a gifted rider. Mike Conley had the gift of racing speedway. 1971, Mike Conley had a runoff with Michael Bass. It was Mike versus Mike for the United States Speedway Championship, tied in points. It was the runoff, and Big Michael Bass beat Big Michael Conley for the runoff, and it was Michael Bass' first Speedway Championship, first of 7 in the 70s, and Big Mike Conley ended up in second place. Mike Conley was a businessman. He started Redline Frames with a partner. Redline became a huge success, and they finally sold it out. And then they started the Champion Cranes. Michael Conley was just a true businessman. He was a success. Mike Conley was a good guy, too. He was such a good guy that in 2005, Mike Conley was inducted to the Trailblazers Hall of Fame. That's for all the good motorsport riders. Mike Conley was a very good motorsport rider. Mike Conley has been an avid supporter of the Trailblazers. He attends many regular events. They are yearly, and Mike Conley is a star. He's a celebrity at those Trailblazer events. Big Mike Conley. Billy the Bullet Meister. Billy was just a good rider. He was a bullet, and he was fast. He was a good starter. He raced against all the great riders in the 70s. Billy was not the top star of the day, but he was a star. He was a hard charger. He was an excellent rider, and he raced with all the very best speedway riders of the 70s. Billy was a good rider, but he did have his bad days also. Billy had several crashes on the speedway track. I think he was a little bit wild rider too, but you gotta have a little wavos to be on that speedway bike. You gotta be able to twist that throttle. You gotta be able to suffer the consequences of an occasional crash here or there too. Billy raced for the San Bernardino Sizzlers, the Sizzler Steakhouse, San Bernardino, California. He got injured, and then when he came back, there was like Stiggy and other riders like Oxley. They took his place. So he went ahead and he took another injured rider's place on the Orange County Eagles. And Billy the Bullet Meister was a rider in the Speedway League in the 76 for the Orange County Eagles. He can still fit into his leathers today from the old days. And Billy's all active in Facebook. He's all over social media. So if you want an answer of a question, yes, Billy the Bullet Meister. He's a good guy. He's around Speedway a lot. He's friends with Scott Sivage and Gene Fink of the Costa Mesa Speedway. Billy the Bullet Meister.
Last but not least, we have another star rider of the 70s. But he was a little guy. He was a junior speedway rider, and his was Lance King. Now, he was a protege of Michael Bass, the machine, Michael Bass. He saw something in Lance. He saw that Lance had a potential to be a superstar. And guess what? Lance King, he turned out to be a superstar. I saw Lance as a young 16-year-old at the Costa Mesa. Lance King was tearing it up. And he was so good, he went over to England and raced for the Heathens. And he was tearing it up with Bruce Penhall over in England. That was in the early 80s. But Lance King was a star. He was a star in the making in the 70s.